Welcome to another episode of Discog Discourse. On this episode, we're going to be talking about The Devil Wears Prada. Now, if you've never heard our podcast before, this is a show where we pick a band, listen through all of their albums and EPs, and then come back to rank and review them. My name is Nathan, and with me I have my co-hosts Kyle and Jeff. Gentlemen, are we ready for a potentially long, potentially controversial conversation about The Devil Wears Prada?
Oh yeah, we're in for a good one tonight. I think there's going to be fireworks. I think it's going to be heated, and I'm all here for it. I'm pretty excited, but we'll see what happens. I got some hot takes in my back pocket, so just be ready for that.
Oh boy.
Truthfully, never been more ready, and that's all I have to say.
I think this will be the first episode of the year where we don't have the same number one. I think that's a very real possibility with how many releases they have.
I would be surprised if two of us didn't have the same one. I would be shocked if all three of us had the same one, but I'd also be surprised if we all three had a different number one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Who do you think is going to agree?
Well, if I had to put money on it, I would say me and Kyle. If I had to put money, if I was a betting man, I would put it on me and Kyle.
I would say the odds of that always seem to be higher than someone else and me being on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the sports folks are saying that Jeff and I will likely have the same one.
Vegas says that y'all's number one will be my number 8. So
yeah,
dude.
I think the highest Vegas odd though is that none of us have the same one.
You think so, huh? All right. Well, before we really get into the meat and potatoes tonight, I got to plug the social medias. So if you want to join the discourse, you can follow us on Twitter at Discog_pod, on TikTok at Discog Discourse, on Instagram at Discog.Discourse. And if you could leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening, that would help, yada, yada, yada. Also, I noticed on Spotify, our show will not pop up on your homepage unless you hit the little bell. It's probably a bell icon, I would assume. That's what it is on everything. But to set up notifications when new episodes drop. So definitely click that so you can get notified when we drop a new episode once a month. We also have a couple tweets that we want to shout out, as we do at the start of every episode. And if you want to have your tweet read on the show, all you got to do is quote tweet our rankings when we drop them, and leave your takes, leave your lists, leave a comment, whatever. If we like it, if it makes us chuckle, or if we think it's interesting, we will talk about it. So the first one we have tonight is from Seth at, I'm going to say it's Saint Levaye. What do y'all think about that? Does that look right on our little screenshot there?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, because I was like, is it St. Louis or Saint Levaye?
St. Louis Avali.
I think that might be it. So from St. Louis Avali, he says, mine would be 1, Collide with the Sky, 2, Selfish Machines, 3, A Flair for the Dramatic, 4, Misadventures, 5, The Jaws of Life. Obviously, there's the Pierce the Veil rankings from our last episode. He said, I remember being a huge fan when Selfish Machines was released because I was just getting into scene music, but when Collide with the Sky came out, it blew the doors off everything else, hook after hook, plus that intro into Hell Above is top tier. I think that's something we could all agree with because we all had Collide with the Sky at our number 1, but do y'all have anything to kind of comment about that, or what are your initial thoughts on that?
I think it's a fair ranking. I think Kyle would probably agree with it more, seeing that A Flair for the Dramatic is so high. I don't know why you would put it above Misadventures, but that's like my only gripe, because other than that, it's exactly my list too.
I don't know why you would put A Flair for the Dramatic below Selfish Machines, but yeah, it's just...
Yeah, I was about to say Kyle did put Selfish Machines at 4, which is still crazy to me.
And if you want to hear this whole conversation, listen to our last episode.
Yeah. All right, so this next tweet, we're just going to kind of rapid fire through these because I think this episode might go a little long. This next tweet is from Banks that are also an arcade at Dear. Oh my gosh, I can't. Why did I pick the hardest names? Ambelina, Am3Lena.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
They said Misadventures should be number one. All of these suck. Yes, you are not the only one that thinks all of our takes suck. Just look at our TikTok comments; they are vicious.
Aren't banks that are also an arcade? Isn't that just a casino?
Whoa, I think it is
true.
This last one is from Yeenie Weenie at Chaos Incarnate. She says Jeff's is perfect, except I would swap Flare and Misadventures. Pierce the Veil's Discog is interesting in that it kind of echoes My Chemical Romance. Album 1 was a good start with rather unstructured songs. Album 2 has a black cover with a couple on it, has a major scene sound and aesthetic, and album 3, oh my gosh, the screenshot cuts off. They were saying album 2 has a black cover with a couple on it, has a major scene sound and aesthetic. Album 3 is widely regarded as their best with a massive hit on it, King for a Day or Welcome to the Black Parade respectively. Album 4, they started to shift to a more poppy type sound while still sort of maintaining their true sound, which preceded a breakup. Now that Pierce the Veil has released their reunion record, I sure hope My Chemical Romance does their 5th way better. Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting comment, just with a very well thought out and kind of interesting. And I also hope My Chemical Romance comes back, and I hope they do it better than Pierce the Veil did.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. And so now to get into the fun part of the episode, Kyle is going to be leading this discussion. So as you know, he'll walk us through his list, and as he does so, Jeff and I will also chime in with where the album ranks in our list, and we'll have a beautiful, well-rounded discussion about the album. Nice. So now that all the housekeeping is done, Kyle, I'm going to kick this over to you. Yep. It's your time to shine. 11 projects.
I have one thing to say, and that is, for the longest time, I thought that this band was named after the movie starring Anne Hathaway, and I was wrong.
It's not?
No, this band was made before the movie came out. The movie came out in 2006. This band was created in 2005. It's based off a book.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure it's also a book. I thought the book was going to be a lot older than it is, but it actually only came out in 2003.
So are the movie and the band both based off that book?
Movie probably, band I don't think so.
Well, yeah, band likely not. What if everything is subliminally though, like about the movie? Every single song is just
no. I was gonna say, if we look at the through line through all of their albums, we'll actually be able to follow the plot from the book.
Ooh,
it's been a long con, and I have no supporting evidence to back that up, but I am choosing to believe that is true.
I'm also choosing to believe that.
Yeah. I mean, the next album, their 12th and final album will be like, it was all based off the book. That will
it's going to be self-titled. I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be a good capstone album for him.
All right, after that silly little anecdote, my number 11 ranked The Devil Wears Prada album is their very first, Dear Love, A Beautiful Discord.
Yeah, that's a W. That was a pretty easy one for me. Oh my gosh, here we go. We're going
already off to a good start. I'll put it. I had to look at where I ranked it because there's so many albums.
This is gonna be a tough one to keep up with the rankings. But I put it at number 11. Kyle put it at number 11, and Jeff put it at number 9.
What? All right, give it to us, Jeff.
I like this album. I do. I think that it obviously has some production issues, and I do think that the vocals leave a lot to be desired. It's their first album, obviously, that's expected. But I feel like they tried really, really hard here to create something unique and interesting with good music, and I think they pulled that off for the most part. I thought that there's a lot of cool sound effects and riffs on here and awesome moments, starting from the beginning with the ominous intro track, just moving straight into Gauntlet, which is just crazy. So I honestly think that this album does a good job of what they were trying to do. Maybe overly ambitious at some parts, because I think that the track can become muddied with how many sound effects they have playing on top of the not great production on the instruments and the vocals. But all in all, I don't hate the music on here. I like it more than 2 other albums that they have.
That's a wild thing.
I think I'd be willing to put money. I know exactly what those 2 albums are.
All right. Keep it in the back of your head, and we'll see. You
I'll
might.
keep it in the back of my head, but I think Vegas knows too.
Vegas may. We'll see.
Yeah, dude, I don't know.
Okay, so I'll give you this. I think this album is better. Maybe not better. It's more enjoyable than the sum of its parts. Like, I don't think this is particularly good music. Like, the guitar work is obviously very amateur. The vocals are very rough. The songs are very clunky. I think some of the production choices are not great at all. Like, the synth is just way too abrasive.
Agree.
And overall, it's just not very coherent. But for some reason, I really didn't mind listening to this the first time I went through it, for at least the first half of the album. I think that did kind of start to wear off by the end, and I was kind of ready for it to be over. But for the most part, I kind of didn't hate listening to it. And for the quality that it truly is, it should be less enjoyable.
Man, I do not agree. I could barely stand it. The vocals were wearing on me after song 3. And the synth, like you mentioned, Nathan, was killing me. Like the Gauntlet of Solitude, when there's the piano walk down over the synth.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. That blew my mind in the worst of ways. And I felt like stuff like that kept on happening over and over again. Jeff, you mentioned it's kind of an overly stuffed album. There are way too many elements. There's very little structure. I felt like the only solid song structure was Out of Swords, Dragons, and Diet Coke, which I actually enjoy that song. But overall, I did not enjoy my listening experience. The vocals were too much to handle for me.
Yeah, the vocals are pretty rough. I will agree with that.
I also agree. No disagreement here.
It's not just the screaming. I think some of the singing is also downright horrendous.
No, it definitely takes a few albums for them to get their choruses and cleans well together.
Oh, definitely.
So I agree with that as well.
Yeah. I would say, like, for a metalcore debut, especially for when this came out, which was, oh geez, I don't have the year in front of me, a very long time ago.
2006.
11 projects ago. 2006, thank you. Same year as the movie?
Yeah, actually.
For the time this came out, the production isn't as bad as I was anticipating it to be, or the like bass, guitars, drums, kind of that core sound. But the stuff that they layer on top of it does make it incredibly muddy and often doesn't sound very good. Like I said, the synth sounds just terrible. And I think the piano also sounds just so plain. Like it doesn't have any depth or texture. It's just there and it doesn't sound very good.
That's fair. There are a few songs that I really do like on here, and it's like in the middle. Dogs Can Grow Beards All Over is good, and The Sentence Trails Off, and Rosemary Had an Accident. Those are like the kind of my 3 standouts for this album. But you know, I agree. Other than that, it is a lot to listen to. I appreciated what they tried to do, and I agree. Compared to other bands' debuts, I think this would land in one of the better ones.
I agree.
Yeah.
At least as far as my listening experience goes. Like you mentioned Dogs Can Grow Beards All Over. Like there are a couple moments on this album that just had me like borderline screaming in my car. Like, what is happening? I can't believe what I'm listening to. And the synth breakdowns towards the end of that song were one of those moments where it just comes in so loud, just out of nowhere.
Kind of liked it.
It felt so random that it caught me so off guard that it made me laugh. Like I was just like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. The synth like chirps and the bass roll. Like the bass was rolling and then the synth was just like,
yeah, it's a lot.
I couldn't do it.
I think another moment on this album that kind of had me like that was in The Sentence Trails Off, another song that you just mentioned, where the tempo keeps like switching back and forth, and it goes from like this piano piece to super aggressive, and it goes back and forth multiple times. And I was just like, what am I listening to? This is so disjointed. This is so obviously a debut, but I was laughing through it, and so I was like, I guess I'm enjoying myself, but this isn't very good. I don't know if I'm enjoying myself for the right reason.
Yeah, I mean, for that song, the alien lasers made me skip it. I had to get out of there when the lasers came in. After the piano solo in the breakdown, when the laser started, I was on to the
Mm-hmm.
next.
What do you think about that super long instrumental break in "Who Speaks Spanish: Quesadilla"?
I kind of liked it. I don't know. I liked what they were trying to do on this album. I think I have a different take on it, but I like the vibe of that kind of creepy ambience with a little bit of like, I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was a nice touch.
I also agree with that, Jeff. I enjoyed that kind of resolve in the middle of it. But when they came in with the alien lasers again, I skipped it because they did
See,
it
I
again.
think for me that moment in particular just felt a little too just disjointed, and I kind of appreciated it, and like I didn't mind listening to it as kind of a break from the action, but the transitions in and out of it just don't really work for me. So that was kind of another one of those moments where I was like, man, what am I listening to right now?
It's fair.
Yeah, I would say it's easier to listen to this debut than say Architects.
Yes,
Yeah.
But
completely.
it's not an enjoyable experience for me.
Sheesh.
All right, fair enough.
Cool.
Cool.
Keep this train
All right.
rolling.
Keep going.
Okay. My number 10 album is their sophomore album, Plagues.
Whoa, Jeff, climbing the ladder, my friend.
Oh yeah.
So that's my number 9, leaving a gap at number 10 between this and the debut.
Yep, and I have it at 10. Jeff has it at number 7. Jeff, I'm kicking it to you again. I mean, middle of the pack. It's the very bottom for me, really. What stood out to you?
I like this album. I definitely don't think it belongs as low as you guys have it. I definitely think they have worse projects. To me, again, I think it falls under a lot of the same problems that the previous album had, especially with the production. I think in terms of what they're trying to do here, I think the choruses are starting to find themselves. I still don't think they're amazing. And one of the reasons why I have it lower, I put it lower than I might otherwise has, is just because I don't love a lot of the cleans on here. And the screams, again, leave a lot to be desired. Still trying to figure that out, obviously. But I do think that there are a lot of good songs on here. And I think that this album is very, very aggressive. And I love the energy that it brings. I don't know, maybe it doesn't take itself too seriously. And I kind of like that.
It definitely doesn't.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, you can tell by the song title.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And
It's yeah, I mean, and I agree with you that it does have, it is, for lack of a better term, plagued by the same issues
Ooh.
of its debut, but the synth and the screams are more or less the same, and it just made it sound like a more well-produced Dear Love, a Beautiful Discord, excuse me.
I think it's better than just better produced. I think there are some significant steps in the songwriting that go on here.
Agreed.
Like a lot of the rhythmic choices in the guitars and the riffs and everything like that. I think what they're doing there is a lot more interesting and does show some growth between this and the debut. And I think the interesting production choices they do add are more interesting than the ones they had on their debut. Like you kind of get more strings and synth. You get a little organ, which put a smile on my face because we were just talking about that in the last episode.
Yep.
I loved it. Like that was a great moment and an awesome breakdown. And then they do things where it's like the song glitches out in the middle of "Hey John, what's your name again?" And I'm like, that's a super fun idea, super of the time, but like it works, and I think it's cool, and it kind of breaks up the song and adds a distinct feature in it. And so I think there's some significant upgrades in songwriting and ideas, and it's not just a better produced version of their debut.
I mean, I agree. I think that glitch out and "Hey John, what's your name again?" is the coolest part of the Discog up till that point. Isn't saying much, but
Yeah,
that
I was about to... through these 2 albums, it was the coolest thing they'd ever done.
Hey man, it's like 20 songs.
That's fair.
I would agree. I would agree. I think that's a great moment.
Yeah, I also have that down. It's a crazy breakdown. I put that it woke me up and slapped me in the face. I also agree, Nathan, that I feel like this album is less clunky, to your point, than the previous one. It's more cohesive. I just love that the energy it brings. Maybe I'm just a fan of the really heavy Devil Wears Prada compared to some of their other stuff, but I just love what they were trying to do with this one. I think it'd be easier to explain once we get to the stuff that I have below it, why I don't like those.
Yeah.
Well, I know exactly what they are, so I
Yeah,
understand what you're
something
saying.
tells me I know
Maybe
it's
you do.
coming up pretty soon here, big guy.
Yeah.
I will say I'm not a fan of any of the choruses because I think they sound all the same to the point where I had to go back and listen to make sure they weren't.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think they've found their choruses
No.
yet.
By this point,
no.
On
definitely
this album.
not.
I think the vocal delivery largely still needs some help. And I think like one of my biggest things is for the longest time, Mike's screams had been a big barrier to entry for me for the Devil Wears Prada. There's like I haven't always really loved his voice. Like something about the register and the tone of his mids and highs just didn't really gel with me. And I think that's on full display on this album, especially on kind of the tracks where you get more melodic instrumentation and just a barrage of never ending, really long held screams that never let the instrumentation breathe at all. But like, there are a couple tracks where that isn't the case. There are a couple tracks that I think are really fun, and those would be the heavier ones, like the almost borderline deathcore song "Don't Dink and Drance." Like, I think his vocal delivery just matches that really chaotic instrumentation better.
Mhm.
And so I think that song and Nichols is Money Too, probably the two most aggressive tracks on this album, are probably my favorites. I think they just gel better with his vocal delivery on here.
Definitely fair. I
Fair.
completely agree.
Fair, and I like it.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah. And Jeff, what you're saying about this album being kind of fun and not taking itself seriously is part of the reason I enjoy it more than the album that's in my number 10 spot.
Okay. Okay. I feel that.
Yeah.
We'll see what it is. I'm excited.
Yeah.
We'll see what it is. Maybe right now. Are we ready to move on, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think so.
A real quick question. Did y'all catch the Craig Owens feature in Can't Spell Rap Without C?
No.
He's there for like 4 lines. And I was like, wait.
Really?
How'd you catch that?
I recognize his voice, and I was like, that's not Jeremy from
What
Prada.
the heck?
Yeah,
dude?
it's literally like 4 lines, and it was the most random thing ever.
Dude, Craig Owens was in everything though.
He
and
was.
like between like 2007 to 2013, he touched everything.
Yeah. It just caught me super off guard. I didn't expect it. I thought it was cool. A cool little moment.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, now I'm ready.
All right, we're ready.
Yeah. Moving
We're ready
along.
for my number 9 album for the Devil Wears Prada is 818.
Oh,
I'm shocked.
I'm surprised you have it so low.
I'm also surprised by that.
Ethan have it about the
I'm
right
very-
spot. Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
I'm
sir.
very,
Yes, sir.
I'm very surprised.
I am shocked by this because didn't you text us that this was a really good album?
No, I said that about Transit Blues, I thought.
Oh, I think you.
No, you
I thought
didn't.
said about this
No,
one.
you said
I
I'm
think
having
that-
an 818 moment.
Oh no. Dude, I might have put a fast one on you guys
I
because
think
maybe
you did.
I mean after that one, I did not enjoy this album.
Wow.
Really? Okay.
And maybe it was because it was on the heels of a very good album that I enjoyed. I thought it sounded like B-sides from Dead Throne. I thought that it was overall just part 2, except more poorly produced. I thought the songwriting was a little more lazy. And there's one song that I really enjoyed, and that was number 11.
Good song.
Very desperate, filthy breakdown, a lot of anger. Martyrs is fine, even though I thought it was slightly aimless. And then Transgress is fine. But overall, I thought that everything at certain points just kind of blended together, and it wasn't for me at the end of the day. I just felt like it was a much weaker version of a great album that had come out before it.
Interesting.
fair.
This is so fascinating to me. Because at first, I think I agree with you at first. Because this album was really giving me a hard time. Because when I first started listening to it, I really just didn't like it. And I thought kind of a lot of what you were saying, I felt like It feels like a lesser version of a good Prada album. It feels all kind of B-sides. It's a little bit samey. But I don't think I could place exactly why it wasn't gelling with me. And I had like a full review written out for it. And I was like, the choruses don't hit. Maybe it's the lack of strings and ominous atmosphere. But I couldn't exactly place what it was. And ultimately, I did end up warming up to this album quite a bit. It's obviously not the strongest Prada album because I still have 6 more projects in front of it. But I don't think it's bad by any means. Like, I actually think there are quite a few really good songs on here. Like the opening track, Gloom, which has this kind of alien synth throughout it. And then that breakdown in the second verse hits so hard where he's like, when he says no into my burden and like it drops down to this nasty riff, like that hit me so hard. And then I think Rumors is a pretty good follow-up to that. Like, and I do think it hits a really good stretch with like Number 11 and Home for Grave is 2 kind of heavy songs towards the end there. Just with the atmosphere and like the bells in Home for Grave throughout the track are just so haunting and it sounds so cool. So I think I'm a bit higher on this album than you are, which is very surprising to me given that misleading text you sent us.
Yeah,
I will also say I think the high screams on this album are very annoying, and I didn't feel that way in the previous 2 records, and then this one. The deeps were awesome, but the higher screams just really grated on my ears. But
I don't know if I agree, but it's a fair point. I think
I don't agree.
I'm not sure I agree either. But so in my opinion, the main problem I have with this album and why I don't have it higher is just because I feel like there's a bit of whiplash with it, honestly. Because in my opinion, you start with like 3 pretty good songs in Gloom, Rumors, and First Sight, and then you immediately get dropped down into War, and I don't like that song much at all.
Oh, I
And
really like War. I
dude,
think that's
I
one of the better
don't.
choruses on this album. Like, I love that kind of more melodic, piano driven, huge chorus. Like, I really like that song.
I don't know. It just did not click for me. I didn't feel like it was bringing the same energy that the previous 3 songs were, and I felt like it was a strange change of pace, especially with 818 right after. And it's like 2 songs that I don't really enjoy that are kind of more slow paced. But I do agree. I think the second, maybe 3/4 of this album, like the last 4 songs, are really strong. But it's just getting to that middle part to me that's really tough and why it's so low. I will also, to Kyle's point, say that I do also agree that this album is a bit boring and there's not a whole lot going on compared to, like the 2 albums before it, where I felt like the songs had a lot more character and interesting moments and stuff. That's not to say that those don't exist on this album, but I think that, it does start to get a little samey. All in all, I mean, I think it's a pretty good album with some real duds and some, I guess, maybe pacing issues. I felt like through the middle, but other than that, I felt like it was pretty solid. Obviously, I have it in the middle, so I think that's where it belongs. It's like a middle tier Prada album, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I think it's a solid metalcore album, but for a Prada album, it is easy to lose in the fold because compared to some of their other work, it's just okay.
I agree. I think that might be what it was for me as well. And looking at my list, I did accidentally put it 1 rank lower. I have both of these.
Oof.
I'm sorry. There's so many freaking projects.
You're
dude.
locked
They're
in now, Kyle. There's no going back.
They're right next to each other. So
There's no
I apologize.
revisions.
However, I take back nothing that I said.
Yeah.
In that, just not very interested.
Yeah. I'm curious if I were to ever revisit this album kind of outside of the context of listening through every Prada album at the same time, if it holds up better. Because I do think there's some good songs on here. There are definitely some forgettable stretches on this album, like Care More through Transgress. I could not tell you a thing that happens in that stretch.
Yeah, I forgot to
But
mention
then
Care
you get
More.
Number 11 and Home for a Grave, and those are good songs. This is really random, but Care More is like the Devil Wears Prada doing their best Star Set impression. And I don't know if y'all have ever listened to them, but that is exactly what they sound like. And I guess technically Star Set started after this album, but whatever. It sounds like a Star Set song.
I felt like it was like kind of swan song-ish. And that, like, honestly, it was a pretty anticlimactic song, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to
Like,
say.
it felt like it built and then built to nothing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have written down. It's a build up to nothing. And that's like the worst thing that it could possibly be. is like anticipating this huge crash at some point that never comes. And I'm like, okay, why is it on here?
It's a break from the action.
And yeah,
I guess that Martyrs kind of provides that crash, but it's not in the same, I don't know, atmosphere.
yeah.
Like there's such an interesting atmosphere or like a unique atmosphere in Care More to the album. And Martyrs, I think, just kind of goes back to more generic, boring Devil Wears Prada. Though I kind of like that song.
I do too.
Yeah, I do want to be extra clear here. I do think it's a good album. I do think it's pretty solid, just compared to some other Prada projects, which is like the whole thing we're doing here. It doesn't stack up. I just want to make sure that people aren't like, you're just a hater. Let the record show that I do like this album and think it's good, just not amazing for a Prada project.
I'm gonna said it better myself. I will be very clear when I don't like a Prada album. We're not there yet. I'll be very, very clear when I don't like one.
I'm a hater on other Prada albums,
Same.
but not this one.
I do want to accurately, though, reflect my list because this is bothering me
Okay.
that this should be in the 8th spot.
I grant you the ability to change just this once.
The council approves of a singular revision.
11 projects. Come on. I was waiting to talk about this one too, but anything else on 818, boys, or
I don't think so.
should we move on to, I guess, what chronologically be my 8th ranked, but technically my 9th ranked?
Yeah, run it.
Sure.
Their 2015 EP, bass EP. Wow.
Now we're talking. Now I can get into some. Oh no,
Jeff?
Now we can talk about some Prada I don't like.
Wow, Jeff.
This is Prada you don't like?
No.
What?
Okay, well, I didn't know what you were going to put down there, apparently. This is totally not what I expected. Oh my gosh.
Hey, don't attack me. Me and Kyle have it in almost the same spot, so don't just attack me.
Yeah. But I did kind of enjoy this EP. I just have it lower because there are like 4 songs on it.
There are 5.
6.
No, there are 6 with an interlude.
Celestial Mechanics is a freaking interlude. Which, let's talk about that real fast. Why are we putting interludes on an EP?
Okay, hold your horses, though, because every other Prada EP is only 5 songs, so just count it as 5 songs. It's fine.
Yep, that's true. That's how I did it.
That's how I did
All
it.
right. Fine. You guys got me there. You guys freaking got me. Whatever. I didn't rank it. I didn't grade it. I just listened to it and thought it was stupid. All right. It's a thing of principle.
What?
All right.
Wait. Pause. Time out. Are you saying you thought that song was stupid, or you thought this EP was stupid?
Oh, I thought that putting an interlude
Okay.
in an EP is stupid.
Okay, I'll allow that.
Thanks for the clarification.
I was not about to allow this EP is stupid. That is levels
that
of
would be
slander
tough.
that I will not take, because I put this at number 5.
That's crazy.
Well, why'd you put it at number 5?
Dude, I think this EP is awesome. Like, this,
Really?
No,
Awesome
it's
is a word
not.
you're gonna use?
No, it's not.
Come on,
It's
yes,
not.
it is. Dude,
No, it's
it's
not.
so good. It's so good. It's obviously a spiritual successor to Zombie. And obviously, it's not on the same level as Zombie. But I do think that this isn't...
Spoiler.
Oh, spoiler. Yeah. Well, that's
Shocker.
not. I mean, come on. Everyone thinks that. This is an absolute masterclass in building soundscapes and atmosphere and really building the song around that. And it's such a unique concept. Like, no other metalcore band, aside from Starset, even though they're not really metalcore, is singing about space, which obviously, whatever. It's kind of a goofy concept. It's cheesy. It's hokey. But I think they do it so earnestly that it works. Like, the first song, you have the launch sequence, and like they have all this, it's not like atmosphere in a song like you would usually hear. It's like they've kind of built this scene that's taking place, and then they bring in the piano, which very much sounds like piano you would hear in a space exploration movie. And then you get like this whole breakdown that's centered around the malfunction of the ship and the screams and everything. And it's like such good storytelling, not just through lyrics, but through the sounds themselves. And I think that they do that throughout this entire EP, and that atmosphere makes it so enjoyable for me. And I mean, that's not even saying, like, the breakdowns hit, the choruses, here's a take for you. The choruses are some of the best of their entire career up to this point in their discography.
I mean, I'll allow that.
There's not a single song on this EP with a mediocre chorus.
Yeah, I'll allow that.
Okay. I thought that was going to be a hotter take than it was. But, like, they're all so catchy. And, okay, maybe this is the hot take we're looking for. Planet A and Alien are top 10 songs.
Yeah,
You're
no.
crack.
Nah, I'm going to stop you there. No, it's not.
Dude,
That's a
they're
ridiculous
so
thing to
good.
say.
No, dude.
Top
I'm going to
10.
stand by it. Those are amazing
Top
songs.
10.
Just because they mention Houston in Planet A does not make it a top 10 song, all right? I mean, the Elizabeth Had a Dream, maybe like you, maybe like me, like that part, in my opinion, is annoying and kind of cheesy.
I was going to bring that up, dude. I don't like that at all.
It's so catchy.
It's corny.
Yeah, until they ram it into the ground, and it is corny. I agree.
I'll give you it's corny. I mean, it's hard to do a space EP without it being a little hokey, right? That doesn't
No.
bother me. Like,
No. Because Zombie is a little corny, but they do it so well that it works. This is also corny. But
well, I think they do it well on here.
I disagree. I don't think they do it well on here. That's the problem.
I think they do it
Well, I
very
don't.
well. I think these are very, very well-rounded songs with good heavy parts and good melodic parts. And elsewhere in their discography, like the albums that I have below this, they don't balance it as well as they balance it on here. And if this was a full album, it would be higher.
I mean, I really don't agree with that. I mean, Moon God is a great song.
Yes, it is.
I think Supernova is pretty good.
Yeah, it's fun.
Asteroid Towards Earth is fine.
That song starts off really strong, but it does kind of trail off once they get to the spoken word part. I think that's the one part on this EP that doesn't land for me.
Yeah, I just don't think it hits like the previous EP or the EP after this does.
So I guess my problem with this EP is as a listening experience, in a lot of the songs, there are over the top sound effects and stuff. Like Planet A, the song doesn't start until 1:30. You have to wait a minute and a half to get to the song. In Asteroid Towards Earth, like the last half of it or whatever is them repeating "Say Goodbye One Last Time." It's closer now, like a billion times, and I'm like, okay, so like you're capping off this EP, and it's an EP with like two really long sequences that I don't really want to listen to, and then when you get to the actual songs, I just don't think the breakdowns hit as hard as they usually do on other Prada projects, and I also don't think that they're earned very well because I don't think that there's a lot of energy on this EP. I think sometimes it gets a little boring. In the verses and stuff like that. Not to spoil, but again, Zombie doesn't do that, doesn't have those problems. It is energy all the way through 100% of the time. But with this, I mean, I just felt bored. And then I just felt like it was too corny for me to cap it all off. Like the one part that sticks out is when he's screaming acidic saliva. I'm like, okay, like, all right, how much here do I have to take before I roll my eyes?
I agree.
Like, you know, it just doesn't work. I just don't think it works that well.
I'm pretty sure you could find lyricism just like that on Zombie.
There is, but did you notice it? I didn't notice any really like cringy screams on Zombie, but I did hear it and it stuck out like a sore thumb.
I think the story in Zombie is far better. And like that goes to the lyricism. Like maybe it's, yeah, sure, a little cheesy. We're talking zombies, but they're not like screaming acidic saliva. They're not screaming the crawling part. Like,
well, and even if they are, and they do, of course, say some corny things on Zombie, it's hidden behind this insane energy that you just have to keep up with. You know, it's like, I don't even care what they're saying because like it's a breakdown or the drums are going crazy or whatever. On here, it's like more slow pace. So when he's screaming acidic saliva, I'm just have to sit there like, yeah, okay.
Well, that's like in the triplet breakdown of the second verse in Alien, right? Like I think that part is super cool. Like I think that hits pretty well, and like it may not be like a crushing breakdown, but the way the rhythm kind of bounces there is just infectious to me. So for me, that does work. And obviously it's not as aggressive as Zombie. I'm not going to argue that. Zombie's crazy. But I think it works. It's obviously something different, but I think it works.
fair, but I disagree.
Yeah, I guess at the bottom, I just don't think it works that well.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't think we value the same things while listening to the CP.
No. And you could say I'm wrong, but I wouldn't take offense to that.
That's the discourse.
That's the discourse. Welcome to the Thunderdome. But like,
oh my gosh. Oh, I'm here, boys.
I think the EPs, and we may get into this discussion more a little later, I think they act as really interesting milestones throughout their discography. And this EP kind of kicks off a more melodic direction for Prada. And I think it ushers that sound in very well.
I think it ushers it in a lot better than, let's just say, the album that kind of accompanies this EP, which we were not at yet, unfortunately. I think that melodic part is kind of also the reason why I don't love this EP as well. It takes away from, I think, their metalcore roots, and they're sort of starting to leave that a little bit.
I don't know. I think this is still pretty full-on metalcore. It's a more melodic metalcore, but it's still metalcore. They're not veering into butt rock territory.
No, but they're leaving their original style, which they've built up over, I think, many EPs and albums.
Sure, which is like natural after so many years to evolve. This to me doesn't feel like they're abandoning parts of their sound. It sounds like they're evolving in their sound.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. It's a fair point.
That is fair. I just don't value what they're evolving to.
Agreed.
In this album.
I know what you're saying, Kyle, because there is an album in this discography where I have that feeling. Like they evolve and just kind of all the changes they made, I don't really like. They kind of push the needle in the wrong direction for me. So I get what you're saying. This EP isn't that though for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Ooh, that was fun.
But that was good.
That was fun. We ready for some more fun stuff with my number 7?
Yeah. Give me some more fun.
All right, gentlemen. My number 7, Devil Wears Prada album is Transit Blues. Jeff.
Oh, mama.
I'm glad.
Oh my gosh.
I'm glad we're here.
Oh man. I mean, I'm not saying I really enjoyed this album that much, but Jeff has it as number 11. I have it at my number 7. Nathan has it as his number 8. And we would be remiss not to start with you, Mr. Jeff.
Yet again.
All right, here we go. These are the hot takes I was talking about. The Space EP and Transit Blues were my hot takes. But I guess they weren't that hot. They're kind of warm. Lukewarm takes.
They're warm. I mean, they're pretty hot for Nathan. If I were Nathan, I wouldn't touch the stove.
No, they're too hot for him.
You know what I'm saying?
He can't handle it.
A little bit.
Oh boy. Okay.
I don't like this album. I don't understand what we're saying here. I mean, the Space EP, yeah, we're obviously on the same page, but this is not an album that I enjoy.
Yeah,
Kyle has it higher than I do.
So obviously, with this album, they're transitioning into a new sound. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. And I think that this new sound that they're growing into works. It can work. They prove that it works in future albums. It can be good. But I think there's such bad growing pains on this album, and they just come out in full force here. I don't really like any of the songs on here. I don't think any of them are interesting. And even like the ones that I do kind of like to the key of Evergreen, it's too long. That song is too long, and like the last half of it were kind of boring. But for the rest of them, I mean, you kind of get the more slow melodic screaming that we've kind of come to expect with modern or I guess recent The Devil Wears Prada. But here it just feels lame and it's not emotional at all. There's no emotional charge behind what he's singing, especially in songs like Worldwide. As soon as I heard Worldwide, I was like, oh boy, we're in for a real stinker here.
Man, I'm gonna interject here and say you were saying Space was corny. This is the corniest song in their discography.
Easily.
I have it below Space. That's why.
Easily.
It's horrible.
I'll admit it is extremely catchy. And it got stuck in my head multiple times. But holy smokes, the lyrics in the chorus to Worldwide are so cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it gets stuck in your head, but it's not a good stuck in your head.
No.
Like, it's not like God, I wish I was listening to Worldwide right now. I wish I was getting lost inside of Tokyo.
It's like, get this out of my head, please. I'll do anything.
He's just name dropping places he's been. And it's like, nice.
From Milwaukee to Memphis, Pittsburgh to Portland, Maine.
We get it. You're tired. Nice. You like to go to Tokyo. Cool. Shut up.
And like, get it. You travel. You've seen the world. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, I think the same thing with Lock and Load. I think that's also insanely corny. I mean, of course, the message very important, of course, but the way that it's done is so over the top. Like saying murder speeds
Yeah.
out of the chamber with fury. Like, was there not a subtler way to kind of express what we're trying to say here?
It's definitely very blunt, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. There are very blunt songs that I like, but there is no deeper meaning to the song besides can we stop killing people?
Yeah.
And it
The way that they do it is preachy more than anything, which
Yeah.
Jeff I think is the pressure point because
Yes.
like when Straight from the Path does it, it is kind of
Yes.
cool. Like,
that's exactly who I was thinking of.
but like when Devil Wears Prada does it, it's kind of like that vice principal that's telling you not to smoke cigarettes, and you're like, all right, dude, I don't want to hear this.
I think for me, my problem is with that song more lean towards that it never develops into anything. Like it just
Yeah,
kinda,
it is very anticlimactic. I
it's
have that as well.
super static. Like nothing ever happens outside of stop this lock and load or whatever.
That's my feeling towards this entire album is that I feel like nothing happens. It just feels
Yeah.
so
I don't know,
lame and
dude.
boring to me, and all the songs kind of blend together. And I just don't love the style of any of them. But and again, I think this
Lame and boring is a bit harsh.
that's just my opinion. I didn't really feel like anything really hooked me on this album at all, except for again to the key of Evergreen, which is not a terrible song.
Yeah, it's like a ballad. I love the
It
Key of
is.
Evergreen.
I think that's a pretty good song.
I do enjoy Daughter.
I do too.
I enjoy The Condition. I kind of like Flyover States because it drops into a dirty riff after a kind of lengthy intro.
Builds to nothing. That song goes nowhere. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean,
So
much like Flyover States.
yeah, I don't know if I'd say it builds to nowhere, but I think one of my biggest gripes with this album is kind of the songwriting. Like it feels like a lot of the songs never have a chance to fully develop.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if they feel fully unfinished, but there are a lot of songs that never feel like they change in any significant way. Like none of them feel like they're taking me on a real journey where, you know, I'm at the start of the song, oh, and now I've had this climactic moment and it ends. And I feel like it took me from point A to point B. It's kind of like point A, we circle right back around to point A.
Yeah, I agree. Why did they decide to do a Home for Grave Part 2 when the first one wasn't good?
The first one is good, so I'm not going to let you have that one. But I don't know why they decided to do a part 2 that sounds nothing like part 1. And like I listened to them back to back to see if there's like a through line, and maybe it's lyrical, but I wasn't really paying that much attention to the lyrics. That's not my thing.
Fair.
And I didn't really hear a musical through line through those two songs, so that song was a bit disappointing to me because I had pretty high expectations because the first one's kind of I like the first one. I think it's a good song, but this one I did not enjoy as much.
That's fair. I didn't like this one or the first one, so
I think this one's just bad.
So I was asking for the
This
sillies.
one, I don't like this one at all.
Yeah, it's and it's like what you were saying, Jeff. It doesn't go anywhere. It's very generic, and that is the problem with the bad songs on here, is that there are some catchy and huge moments, but for the most part, it's a road that leads to nowhere, and it's a darn boring one.
Exactly.
So this is the album that for me, I was just talking about, you know, they made the stylistic changes, and all of them kind of push it ever so slightly in the wrong direction for me. And that's not to say there aren't decent tracks on here. Like Praise Poison's kind of a fun opener. I don't really think it ever reaches its full potential, but I don't mind it. Daughter, you mentioned, I think feels like one of the more fleshed out songs on here. And I think like the synth that comes up in that song is really cool.
Mm.
I think the best song on here is actually the title track at the end, Transit Blues, I think is actually a really great song that I enjoy a lot. And I think it really encapsulates the album well and kind of feels like, oh, maybe they did put some thought into this, but that's a good song.
I like it.
But I think just like some of the changes they made are very subtle, but I think every single one of them nudges me away from the band. Like I don't really like the more kind of dreary and drawn out instrumentation. Like I don't really like that it's more sad than it is ominous, or it's like it's not as fun as an album like Plagues. And so even though I have this above Plagues, it's more enjoyable from a production standpoint and just the casual listening experience. But it does have those kind of songwriting issues we were talking about. I think it does kind of have an interesting kind of overarching theme with distance and travel, obviously being called Transit Blues. I think that is kind of another
nice little nugget.
Yeah, nice little nugget here. I think that's kind of an interesting subject matter for a metalcore album that we don't really hear a lot. And it's like throughout the whole album, and worldwide, obviously, about traveling. Flyover states, you get the lyrics like across land, across sea, we can't count the miles traveling. And I actually think kind of the best example is in Home for Grave 2, a song that we said we don't like. But the part where he says, but still the sadness transcended across a dozen states. Like you're just kind of getting all these ideas of distance and longing and travel, and I think that's kind of interesting, and I like that idea. I don't know if these are my favorite Prada songs. Actually, I do know they're not, but I like some of the ideas that they're going for on here. I just wish it had a little more time in the oven. I think this could have been something good, but it's not.
Yeah, sheath it. I like it.
I respect that opinion a lot. I don't know if I agree that it could have been something good if they worked on it more. Just my opinion, but I do agree about the more mellow.
I think it could have been better.
It could have been better.
Wow,
could have been better.
I mean, gosh dang it! Every single one of these records could have been better.
Well,
I do see what you're meaning, though. I do see what you mean, though, Nathan. I do see what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know if
Except
I don't
for Space EP. Space EP could not have been better.
Space EP.
Space EP is borderline perfect, so you're right. It could not have been better.
Do you think that they have a perfect project?
Oh,
I think they have the closest to a perfect project that we've ever talked about.
oh,
Ooh. Maybe we'll get to
All
it.
right.
Maybe we'll get to it next.
Yeah, maybe it'll be really low on Kyle's list.
That would be so unfortunate. You guys pull up with a couple twos while I put it at 6.
Yep.
We'll see.
Hey, I know the feeling.
Well, without further ado, I assume we're done talking about Transit Blues.
I am done.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Sweet. My number 6 ranked album is their most recent project, Color Decay.
Huh? Oh. What we talk about here?
You have it a little low there.
a little low there, buddy.
You got a little low. That's okay.
Choruses and melodies, they were in the lab.
They were.
For this one. They did an excellent job with all their choruses and melodies. I did not hear more than 2 songs with like really interesting instrumentation to me. Whether it be a flesh out guitar part, whether it be a massive atmosphere throughout the album, there were way too many verses where it was just kind of a loosely strummed guitar or a kick drum, and then he's doing his vocal fries over that. There's way too much of that on this project. And after listening to it in the scope of the whole discography, I just realized that I don't think musically there's enough going on in this album to justify putting it any higher. Like I said, I love the melodies, but I don't really find much interesting at all musically in this whole record, which simply is the reason I have it at number 6. And I know being one of the biggest releases last year, and I do enjoy this, and I really, really enjoy every project from here up. But I will say this one just was not for me.
Oh,
sorry. Let me rephrase that. It was for me because I enjoyed it, but I was not caught by instrumentation at all, and I was frankly a little bored if I'm not listening to the chorus.
Interesting. So I agree. Obviously, they were in their bag with the choruses. This is the best collection of choruses in their entire discography. If that's what you're looking for, this is the album for you. I mean, this is just hit after hit after hit chorus-wise. I disagree about instrumentation. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on here. Watchtower obviously is jammed full of fun riffs that kind of evolve in really fun ways, and they bring in new elements as that song goes on, like slight changes in melody, synth in the bridge, and then it all kind of comes together in this final chorus. I think Time is another great example where they're doing something instrumentally. They repeat the chorus over the breakdown at the end. That's not something I hear a whole lot, and I think that's a really cool idea, and they do it really well. The noises, the screams, and the breakdowns in noise are insane. Like the highs that he pulls out at the end of that song are just unbelievable. So I think there are a lot of really interesting things going on here instrumentally, and it does kind of have those heavy moments. And I think, kind of talking about this in the context of the rest of their discography, I think this is the album that they've been trying to write for quite a while now, and they finally did it well. Obviously, I have this in my number 3 spot, so I think very highly of this album. But yeah, man, I think it's a great balance of melody and heaviness, both in terms of heavy music, heavy instrumentation, screams, breakdowns, yada, 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 but also that heavy emotional weight. It's all just balanced so well. And those 3 things are so hard to balance, but they just pulled it off perfectly on this album. I think it's great.
Yeah, the growing pains that I was talking about in Transit Blues, I think they finally pulled it off here. Nathan, completely agreeing with you. This is the sound that they wanted to make since then, perhaps even earlier, that I think is fully now finally coming together. I disagree, Kyle. I do think that there's really, really cool instrumentation on here. I do see where you're coming from, of course, but I just think that there are some good parts on here. Kind of what Nathan was saying. I think that there are heavy moments on a lot of the songs that kind of help to break up.
Yeah, I'm not saying there aren't heavy moments. And like I said, I think there are a couple songs with good instrumentation, but overall, I think that is a huge hole for this album. But I apologize for cutting
No,
you
you're
off.
good. I do think that there are a few songs maybe in the latter half that don't think are nearly as good as I think the first half of this album is crazy good. I think the second half is pretty good with a couple of duds maybe, which is why I don't have it higher. But I just love that they're finally coming out with like just the full emotional breadth of what they're trying to do. This album just feels sad from the beginning all the way to the end, and ends with Cancer, which is just an amazing song, incredibly emotional.
Great closer.
And I believe that they came out with the acoustic version of that song too, which is really, really good. So I love that. I love what they're trying to do. I think the delivery that he was going for, and I remember talking about this in our end of year app, the delivery that he was trying to go for, starting with Transit Blues, I think finally comes into its fullest best form here, where it just feels so raw and just real and really fits over what they're trying to do with kind of the more sad maybe instrumentation. And I think that works here a lot more than it did with Transit Blues. And I don't know if I could explain why, but it just does. Maybe it's just that they finally figured it out, what sounds good, what doesn't. I don't know, but I really like this album.
I don't think I could agree with the take that there's not interesting songwriting on here instrumentally, with songs like Watchtower and Noise and Time, like those songs I already mentioned. But then also you have something completely different like Hallucinate, which has all these interesting electronic elements thrown in there, and it's just this like heavy mess of a song really that just somehow works. So yeah, I don't agree with that take at all, actually.
Yes, I think Time is pretty interesting. I think Cancer has some interesting parts. I think Exhibition has some interesting parts. Nothing stood out for me in Watchtower. Nothing really stands out in Noise. Sacrifice, I think, is pretty generic, though the breakdown is filthy.
Yeah, it is.
My overall problem is it felt like their main focus was on making great melodies, and they did that. But I don't think that the songs were as complete as elsewhere in their discography.
Yeah, I still disagree, but that's okay.
Yeah,
such is the nature of opinions.
Yeah, I think like for me, like the two that I'm not a huge fan of, like Trapped, like you said, and then like 25. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't love 25.
Those are like the two that don't work, and that's kind of where I could say I can kind of feel where you're coming from, Kyle, with that instrumentation. But and again, for me, I think I enjoy the style of older Prada more than this new style. So having it at number 4, I think it says a lot, obviously, but also I think it shows that I really hope they continue with this sound and continue to make it better if they choose not to go back to their earlier sound.
They won't.
Yeah, they're probably not going to.
They will not go
so
back
in that
to
case,
earlier
I
sound.
hope they just continue with this. And just continue to make it great, because this is really good, and so that's the only thing I have to say.
I'd be very happy if a band 11 projects in can continue to put out top 3, top 4 albums in their discography. That's super impressive. And I feel like
couldn't agree more.
I feel like often on this show we really get into a habit of like, the new album is super low, which often it is, and that's fine. But I think this is a really unique scenario where a band has evolved. And, they've gone through growing pains for sure, but they finally have made it to the other side of that and put out a great album again. I think this is awesome. I think Watchtower is a 10 out of 10. Sneak that in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this album's, I think it's phenomenal. I think it's
I
really
agree.
good.
I do think it's really good.
And if you want to hear more thoughts on it, we do talk about it at length in our Best of 2022 episode, as it made all 3 of our lists, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of 2 albums that made all 3 lists.
Yep.
So go check that out if you want to hear more thoughts on it.
Final thought, I do think his screams are a little annoying at parts. For some reason, they don't sound like they're quite on key. I'm sure that's a me thing, but that did bother me in some of the songs.
I'm going to get into this more in depth, but there is a specific delivery that they do throughout their discography, so it's hard to credit it to one album, that I don't really love. And it's kind of the half scream,
the vocal fry,
half spoken word, over more melodic tracks, like 25. 25 is the song on this album where they do that.
Completely agree.
That just never works for me. And there's an album where they do it a lot that we haven't talked about yet that is pretty low on my list. You'll notice I still have my 10 spot.
I think I know what it is, and I'm going to agree with you. So,
dang, dude. Whoa.
All right.
Yes.
Excuse me. I apologize for that outburst. Well, then, shall we move to my number 5?
I reckon we shall.
My number 5 record for the Devil Wears Prada is their 2019 album, The Act.
Yeah, that's my number 10.
I figure while you were saying it, I was like, yeah, he's definitely putting...
You have The Act over Color Decay? Oh, no.
Yes, 100%.
No.
Easily.
Guys, it's the return of our famous segment, Kyle Comedy Hour.
No.
Easily. Hey, now, mister, let me remind you, never mind.
Say something about space.
I won't.
That's what I thought.
I'll leave it to the Twitter hounds to eat you up like they did last episode.
Oh,
yeah, they probably will. This was a pretty well received album.
Please take it away though, Nathan. I am interested to hear what your thoughts are.
This is like the one Prada album that I just do not enjoy. Like, there is not a lot to this that ever makes me want to go back to it. I listened to it 3 times to make sure there's maybe it would click. And it just never did. To me, it feels like almost all of the elements that made Prada are gone or largely toned down on this album. And to me, this is the most growing pains that this band ever goes through.
Wow.
And one of the things that really, really drags this album down is what I was just talking about, with that half screamed, half spoken word vocal delivery over melodic, mellow instrumentals. It never works for me once in their discography, and they do it all the time on this album. So that automatically eliminates songs like Please Say No, Isn't It Strange, and As Kids. Like, those are all just so irritating to me. It does not work.
I think it's more present in Color Decay.
I disagree.
Like in songs like 25, it's in
25.
I guess we were just talking about it, but I can think of 4 that has kind of that annoying vocal fry delivery that they started doing in The Act. That's a lot more present because the Color Decay seem to be a little more stripped down when they do it on the verses.
I disagree entirely. I think that it's so much more present on this album. This album is much more stripped down than Color Decay is.
There are songs that are, but there are portions, but I don't agree overall. Not a chance.
Color Decay also has this going for it. It has good choruses and other interesting elements to lift up the song when maybe there are some moments that are, that vocal delivery, which this album just does not have.
I couldn't disagree more, but Jeff, actually, you know what? No, I'm not. I think Lines of Your Hands is a great chorus. I think that they cracked the real heavy, or not real heavy, but the heavier music with a solid chorus. This is where I think that they found the ability to write a catchy chorus. Lines of Your Hands is excellent. I think Chemical has a good catchy chorus. Wave of Youth is another really good slower paced song. And I guess that's more of where I'm coming from, is I think they cracked the code of writing both heavy and slower paced songs that are balanced and well written. I think the choruses until Isn't It Strange, and even then, really Diamond Lost, are all good. They're all fine. I do hate the drony guitar throughout Switchblade in the chorus. I can't listen to it. That song does really annoy me.
That song is so clunky. It doesn't work at all.
Lines of Your Hands to Numb, I enjoy, and I think it shows the growth of this band that just put out Transit Blues. That they changed. Wait, right? That was the record. Yeah, they changed direction almost completely, and they do an excellent job of it in a lot of areas. Now there are some clunkers. Obviously, Diamond Lost isn't great. As Kids, like you mentioned, not very enjoyable. And Spiderhead, I think the last 4 or 5 songs do kind of limp to the end. But man, I really do enjoy a lot of moments on this album, especially the choruses. And I think that these songs are more full than Color Decay, which is why I have it over Color Decay.
I disagree.
No, this whole album is limp.
Well, so my biggest problem with this album is kind of what you mentioned, Kyle, is that the second half is just not good. I don't like it at all. From Numb to Spiderhead, I don't think there's like a single moment of that I even remember from any of those songs. Now, I will say The Thread is one of my favorite Prada songs. I'm just going to put that out there. I really like The Thread. But that's like kind of the only song that I really, really like on here.
It's the best song on this album.
Oh, it's by far the best song in this album. And it's not really close, in my opinion. Onto Your Hand, I agree, is also pretty good. Very catchy. But then other than that, I mean, you kind of lost me. I agree. Switchblade is a weird song. It's just kind of weird. I don't hate it, but I also don't love it. Chemical is just too repetitive for me, my opinion. And then Wave of Youth has that really weird scream. What were you saying, Nathan? The scream talking?
It's like half spoken word, half scream.
The half spoken word scream where he's like, build me up to tear me. Every time I hear that, I'm like, it just doesn't work.
I think it works in that song though. I think it works maybe in a more building sense with elements building around it.
I agree, because I don't hate it as much as I do like 25, where I think it's just egregious. But because on that song, you do have it like, you can definitely feel it building up to the chorus where it's like, it happened again, that. I really like that part, but still it's hard to get through that one part on there. And then Please Say No is again too repetitive. And so at the end of the day, like the songs that I like on here, Lines of Your Hands and The Thread, I think are really, really good, which is why I don't have it lower. But then the rest of this album, just kind of forgettable, just very, very average.
Man, I don't understand, Kyle, what you're saying about like a good balance between heavy and melodic on.
A better balance. It's a better balance than on A Color Decay.
I think that album is way more balanced. Like to me, this leans too far into like we're going mellow, and it doesn't balance it out with the heavy. Well, like The Thread is heavy, but like they don't necessarily balance it well within a single song. Like you look at songs like Switchblade, which are super clunky and weird, and there's all these different ideas, and they all just kind of smush together. But like Wave of Youth isn't heavy. The main riff in that song sounds like maybe a somewhat heavier alt rock band, but then you just have Prada's vocals over it.
I'm not claiming it's heavy.
But you said this album balances the heavy and the melodic.
Yeah. Like from song to song. Like I think Lines of Your Hand is a good heavy song. The Thread, Numb is a massive song at the end there. And that's a song that puts it all into perspective with kind of the delicate at the beginning and ends huge. Isn't It Strange is interesting. But yeah, no, I mean like Spiderhead is extremely intense and has a nasty breakdown towards the end. And I do think that this is a more interesting album to me than Color Decay.
I would agree with, those breakdowns are good, the heavy parts are good, and those songs, but everything else just loses me on this one. Like, I don't know. This is crazy to me. I do not enjoy this album at all.
I definitely land on Nathan's side of this argument.
Listen, hey boys, this is why we do it, for the love of the game.
That's true.
Yeah.
We knew there were going to be some hot ones here.
We did.
Yes.
It was a given with 11 projects. And also, obviously, this goes without saying, no hate. We're not hating on each other. It's the very nature of disagreement.
Nathan's hating on the music.
I'm hating on the music a lot because I hate this album.
I don't hate this album.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I did fall to enjoy this one a lot more. I do see its faults, but I think it's a more interesting album than Color Decay, and that's kind of where I'll leave it because I fear we start talking in circles.
We will absolutely start talking in circles. I have a note here that says this album made me go back and listen to Transit Blues again and have a perhaps I treated you too harshly moment.
I completely disagree with that. Like, that's way too far.
That's a wild thing to say.
Way too far.
I'd listen to Transit Blues 5 times over before I listened to this album once.
Yeah, that's just crazy talk.
I like this album, and I like Color Decay. I like this album more.
Fair enough.
Cut everything I've said in this in this podcast and just put that in.
Things are getting too heated in the discourse.
My feelings are being hurt by one Space EP, Nathan.
Space EP is 10 times the project this is.
Jeff?
That's way too far. Way too far.
Slow your horses.
Down.
No. I will not slow down. I will continue to make brash and bold claims that I stand by.
All right. Any more brash and bold claims before we move along?
Oh, this album's okay.
The jump in quality between this album and Color Decay is the biggest jump in quality between two projects that we've ever talked about on this show.
That is a ridiculous. You just laughed because you knew how ridiculous what you just said was.
I mean, that's just crazy.
I fully stand by that statement.
There's got to be something. Just have to think.
Oh, they're true. I mean, Architects is the first thing that comes to my mind, but
they had a gradual incline with their albums, right? So like they started off really bad, but then over time they get better. But this album is low, and then Color Decay is so good. And so there's a huge difference between the two albums, and it's the biggest
I don't know, dude.
Of such gaps.
Between Disgusting and Aggressive from Beartooth, I think
it's pretty big.
I think that's a ridiculous thing for you to say, but it's okay.
Disgusting and Aggressive. Yeah, there is quite a decline there. I don't think it's as intense as the increase in quality between these albums.
Yeah. Anyways,
ooh, things are getting spicy.
Nathan's had a fun time destroying my life.
I hope it hasn't come to that.
Yeah, my life is in ruins. We ready, boys? We ready to move on?
Yes, let's move on.
My number 4 ranked project, which I'm sure will have us all in an uproar, is the second in the zombie series, Z2.
I'm not that uproared, to be completely honest.
No, that's a very good take.
I feel like that was a good safe pick. I like it. Hey, let's come back together.
Guys, we're together. We're together again.
We're back.
And we're back. We're back.
Jeff, we have our top 3 slots open. Nathan kind of does, but
we're all going to agree in the end.
Hey, listen.
Yeah, we'll all come together.
It's becoming extremely apparent that the number 1 project is, but
well, we'll see.
We're getting there. We'll see. I don't know.
Don't say anything too fast. I might get a little crazy.
Yeah, but we're together now, and that's what's important.
We're kind of together. Though Nathan has it in his 6, Jeff has it in his 5, and I have it in my 4. We're not beefing anymore.
I think it's all gonna fall within the same tier.
Yeah,
of
I agree. And my first question is this about vampires?
No, it's about zombies, I'm pretty sure.
Are you sure?
If I had to guess, I think it's about zombies.
Nightfall talks about the monsters coming out at night and hunting them. That doesn't sound like a zombie.
There are zombies that do that.
Yeah, there are.
Where? Point to where. There are also vampires that do that because that's their thing. Like when it says they dig themselves up and break out in the night and they hunt us, and then we have to constantly retreat. That sounds like a vampy to me, but
they're digging out of their graves.
Or their coffins.
Which would be in the grave.
Yeah, which a vampire breaks out of.
So would a zombie.
But why would they call it Zombie 2 and not Vampire 1?
Yeah, why isn't it called Vampire?
That'd be kind of cool, though.
Maybe that's what they'll do next. The Vampire EP.
That'd be sick.
Dude, I'm telling you, read the lyrics to Nightfall, and it'll make you think, oh, wait, hold on. Someone else talk real fast while I find the lyric.
Okay. This EP is really good. I think it's a great jump from the act, I believe, that was before it. It showed that they're able to go back and really do their old stuff again, which gives me hope for the future. Nightfall is potentially the best song in their discography.
Whoa.
Is that a hot take?
Whoa.
Is that even a hot take?
I don't know. I think that's a hot
Really?
take. I think it is a really good song, but I don't even think it's the best song on this EP.
What do you think is Forlorn?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair, because I was just about to talk about that too. They're both amazing.
Forlorn is a masterpiece.
It is. It's awesome.
Yeah, they're both amazing. Kyle, did you find the lyric yet?
Let me just say, they're hiding from the light. Every window boarded up. Can you make it till dawn? Looming torture jaws bearing. Dude, I'm telling you, this is about vampires. I'm telling you.
I would buy into this argument a little bit more if this EP wasn't called Z2 and didn't have lyrics like "It's been years since the outbreak."
Right. It could be a vampire outbreak.
Dude, maybe the zombies turn to vampires.
Okay, but I still see back to the first argument where it's called Z2 and is obviously a sequel to Zombie, which starts with a Z. And the fact that, if you really want to get meta and dig into the lore, they did a zombie tour where they played both EPs back to back.
Oh, that's a pretty good argument.
Biblical devastation. You get vampire. This is horrible podcasting, by the way.
This is great podcasting. I still think it's about zombies, but I will, fun fan theory, I guess.
Someone should, we should get to the bottom of this, but
I think we already did.
No, dude, this is a wide open investigation, in my opinion. Anyways, yes, I agree. Forlorn is a masterpiece. It's an unbelievable song. Termination is the definition of brutality.
Yes.
Nora is so interesting because they bring back the synth element. It's almost like a callback, and they do it so well.
They do.
They did it so poorly in Plagues. They did it so poorly in Dear Love, but they bring it back in Nora, and it expands the song light years. I don't know what that really means, but the song just sounds huge.
Yeah, I agree.
It does.
And then Contagion is heartbreaking. Just reading along with the storyline, talking about his wife getting oh wait, no, never mind. That's Zombie 1, I think.
Oops.
Oh.
Spoiler. But the bass line throughout Contagion is massive. This is a relentless EP that has bombs that drop in it throughout. That the production is par none. It's a masterclass. It's a masterclass in the genre.
I agree 100%. Like this. Okay, here's something you're not going to agree with. This EP fully reignited my interest in the Devil Wears Prada when it dropped after they came off kind of 2 albums that obviously I'm not very high on. And then I remember rumors of, guys, they're doing a sequel to their 2010 EP Zombie, which is over a decade old at the time, or around that, at least around a decade old. And I was like, now that's an interesting idea. If they can bring back the truly heavy elements like they had on that EP, then this could be awesome. A great throwback. And I think it works really well as a throwback. And obviously it's not a full-on, you're not quite getting the same level of brutality as you do on that EP. And I think some of the elements are a little more toned down than they are there. But that doesn't take away from this EP because it sounds like a fully modernized version of what they were doing, I think. This is what Zombie would sound like if it were released today. And I think it works so well. This is an absolute masterclass in EPs. Yet again, I used to maintain the hot take that Prada's EPs are better than their albums. Obviously, I don't fully believe that anymore, if you look at my list. But I think their EPs are ridiculously strong and always something to look forward to.
I can't believe you have this Below Space EP. I'm just noticing that.
Agreed. I was going to bring that up.
Space is awesome.
Dude, I cannot believe that. With the talk about difference in production value.
I think they both have great production value.
Yeah, one is just not as good as the other.
Yeah.
At all.
No, I disagree with that. I think they both have great production, but they excel in different things. I think Space has better ambience throughout it. They do a better job at kind of creating those soundscapes like I was talking about. And honestly, you don't really hear a lot of that here. I think most of the ambience is built up through, guitar leads and pedals with the guitar effects. Kind of get that like gnarly flanger in the verses of Termination and kind of stuff like that, which is a little more commonplace, which I think, they do it really well. Obviously, it just doesn't kind of have the unique factor that something like Space does. And I don't want to say like this is like significantly worse than Space, because it's not. I think they're probably about the same tier. They're both elite EPs to me.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's why I don't have this EP as high as I do, like, Zombie One, obviously, or higher up on my list, is because I really did miss that like world building that you found on Space EP or Zombie One, where you really kind of got invested in this little story, this little self-contained story that was happening, and they helped to bring out your imagination with the sound effects and all that.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of missing here, and I kind of found myself really wanting that back while I was listening through it. I was like, it would be awesome if there was more of that. So that's why I don't have that as high.
Well, I mean, it is kind of hard to capture what a vampire sounds like.
Like, well,
Sure.
it's just Dracula talking.
Oh, dude.
Could you
I'm
imagine?
in.
I'm excited for Vampire EP when that drops in a couple years.
Yeah, do V1.
V1.
Hey, all right, this is my last lyrical anecdote.
Sure, bring it on.
In Nora, they do say they won't stop till they have her blood, seething eyes, and punctured flesh. Dude, sounds like a vampire to me.
So I'm gonna refute. We're going back to Discog debate. I see your evidence that you've brought forward, and I will refute by saying zombies also often canonically spread the disease via puncture, via biting.
Sure, they both do that.
They both do
Yeah,
that.
but vampires only do it at night, and it seems like this is at
Don't
night.
stop getting hung up on the night thing. Okay, the zombies can do the night thing too.
I love that the crux of this review hinges on is the Zombie 2 EP really talking about zombies? Or are we talking about
but that kind of goes back
vampires
to my point, though, is that if they added like the zombie sound effects that you found on Zombie One, we wouldn't have this
Mhm.
problem. But see, it's missing here.
I agree. I think that is my biggest gripe with this EP is it is missing a lot of the super over the top ambience that the other EPs have.
100%.
And I really kind of like having that there because, they're fun, not one-off projects, but they're fun kind of side projects, side stories within the canon of the Devil Wears Prada. It's almost like the Star Wars one-shots where, you get to do like this fun little one-off adventure.
Yeah.
The EPs are a lot like that, and they can do whatever they want with them. And so I think going to that logical extreme where you're getting lift off and yada 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 malfunctions, and then on the other EP, which we haven't gotten to yet, there's a lot of that. And I think that's the one thing that's missing here for me.
Yep. That's exactly why I don't have it higher. On top of the fact that I don't love the songs as much as I do like Zombie One as well. Like the last 3 songs, I don't think they're as good as like the first 2. So there's, I don't know, a little bit of disjunction there.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, but I don't think that really don't take that as like the songs aren't good because
they're
amazing.
awesome. I just like I feel like
that Zombie One is an all-time metalcore project.
Yes, exactly.
Whoa.
I agree.
That's not a secret. Like you talk to anyone that likes metalcore, Zombie One is like one of the best EPs ever made. I can really only think of a couple EPs that are on the same level, and like I think the two other ones in the discography have a chance to beat that.
It's a masterpiece. Shall we inch closer to it?
Yeah.
There's some nasty breakdowns on here, and a lot of the rhythms they find and like kind of play with are just so good, man. There's just so much groove on this EP.
I was gonna say that with Contagion,
it's good.
It really finds that. It's really good.
Yeah, it slams. This EP slaps. I love it.
Yeah, if you want that jolt of energy, play Zombie 2.
Yep, facts.
Or Vampire 1. Anyways, alternate name.
Oh, yes.
All right, shall we go to my top 3 and Mr. Jeffrey's top 3?
And Nathan's 1, 2, and 4.
My number 3 ranked album is With Roots Above. Wow.
Yeah.
I do respect that though. For a long time it was my number
Same.
one.
It actually was.
I was so scared when he said that. I was like, oh my gosh, if Jeff has this at number 3 or number 4, what is this? You're number 3? Yeah,
Yeah.
if Jeff has this at number 3 and I have it at number 1, I'm going to be some kind of truly angry, truly disgruntled.
I mean, but we're kind of same wavelength in it.
No, we all agree it's great.
Sort of. Nathan, though, it is your number 1. It is your baby boy. Take it away.
We were talking about this earlier. They have very close to a perfect album, or a perfect project, I should say. Spoiler, I don't know that this is that. I think there are a couple tracks toward the end that get a little samey or repetitive, but it never dips down into mediocre. Like, everything is great, worth listening to, very enjoyable. And I think this edges out that other project because it is a full length. This is a remarkably consistent album with absolutely fantastic songs. And it's got so many fun riffs, great vocals. The production's a great improvement from the albums before it. And like, I don't know, man, it's just a lot of fun. I love the stringed elements that they have in here that really tie the songs together. And I love the way some of the songs transition into each other. The best example being right off the top, Sassafras into I Hate Buffering. That transition between those two songs and the way they flow into each other puts the biggest, dumbest smile on my face. It's so good. And I think one of my favorite parts about this album is actually a change that happens between the album that came before it, Plagues, and this album. And I think that Mike changed up the delivery and his screaming, which makes a huge difference because you're still getting largely kind of that same instrumental style from Plagues, if not a little toned down, if not a little more melodic. But instead of these long held out screams that don't give the instrumentation any room to breathe, you get kind of faster paced screams. And I think that makes a huge difference because it fits better with the instrumentation and doesn't just cover everything. Like, it actually creates pockets and fits into them and they play off of each other well. Man, this is just so much fun to listen to. Tracks 1 through, so starting at Sassafras through Danger Wildman are all borderline 10 out of 10s for me. Like, they're all so good.
I agree. To add to that, I think Ben Has a Kid is also exceptional, but
it's great.
Continue.
I don't think it's quite as good. I think that is kind of where you start to get into, okay, this kind of sounds like a song maybe I've heard on here before. But even then, that's not necessarily a bad thing because the songs I've heard on this album are amazing. But yeah, those first, 5, 6 songs are incredible. Yeah, I could just go on and I could dive into each and every song on this album and like the specific things that I love about it. Like the little piano that pops up in a Big Wiggly style. There's just so many cool elements like that and so many breakdowns that hit hard and just the way that they kind of play with the melodies and the rhythms. This album has it all. This is an elite metalcore album.
I completely agree. I have very few gripes with this album. Maybe a little too much synth from the previous two is brought over here, but I think they do it well. I think they kind of lock in the synth in a way that they didn't do before. And I also think that bringing in an orchestra over the synth is exceptional and is an exceptional move. And obviously I love me some stringed instruments that are not the guitar in a metalcore song. I mean, gosh dang it, man. Danger Wild, man.
Yup.
Such a good song.
That ending is so good. That orchestra in the back half is so good. And the kind of the tweaks like that, and then even in Louder Than Thunder with the orchestra, makes these songs sound bigger than they have before in this discography. And the cleans, they worked on the cleans, and the cleans are great in the choruses.
Yes.
It's overall, I was blown away. And I will say that the step up in production from Plagues to With Roots, in my opinion, is exceptional and is a ginormous gap in terms of the quality. But
yeah, this goes back to what I was talking about when they haven't yet found the chorus and the cleans yet. I think this is the album where they find it, like Kyle, Nathan, you were mentioning. I love the choruses on here a lot, and I think they really, really work, and I think they're all really catchy. So this would be like my other argument for best choruses in their discography, Nathan. It would be either this album or Color Decay. It would be the two that I would throw out there, just because I think that they're very, very catchy and they work. I do agree that this album can get a little samey near the end, but again, like, I just listened to it like right before the show, this entire album, and I didn't mind it at all. And I think it's just because these songs are so good. You know, you get so many different elements throughout them. The riffs are so, and the screaming, of course, is so much more palatable than it was in the previous two albums. It's just so much easier to listen to. And so I think that this album just kind of has it all. I think it fits into a perfect spot in their discography where they're still doing all the heavy stuff, but they, you know, they haven't shifted too far to the melodic stuff yet. The instrumentation is really interesting, and like you guys have continuously mentioned, the sound effects and all the extra stuff just adds to the experience immensely. And so I think that this album just kind of culminates into this near perfect culmination of everything that they've been trying to do, mixing the crazy elements from their first two albums with the production and stuff of their more recent albums. The screaming's good, the choruses are super catchy, and the instrumentation is just off the wall. So I think it's really good.
I think that's a great word.
That I couldn't have said it better.
The 1-2 punch of Big Wiggly style and Danger Wildman is just so absurd. It's so good.
And the 1-2 punch of honestly the 1-2-3 punch of Sassafras, I hate buffering, an assistant to the regional manager.
Unreal.
It's crazy.
So good. It opens so well.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that even the guitar riff at the beginning of I Hate Buffering is like catchy. Like that will get stuck in my head so often. Every time I listen to it, almost I'm just na 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 na. It's so good. This album is such a step up in everything. They're just firing on all cylinders for this one. It's awesome. It's so much fun. This is a fun album too. Like we were kind of talking about, you know, this is kind of in the fun Prada era.
I agree. And yeah, I like you mentioned, Nathan, there are some really catchy riffs on here, which I just think is really interesting. But it just goes to show, I mean, how much they put into the instrumentation and just trying to make each song really unique. And I think there are a few Prada projects, and we talked about it, that kind of, I think the songs maybe struggle to really differentiate themselves. I don't think this is one of them, especially in the beginning. But I would agree that, like, I don't love the closer, Lord Xenu. I just think it kind of happens. Maybe you guys disagree with that.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
I enjoy Lord Xenu.
I enjoy it.
And for being a closer, I think it's large enough and has a big enough resolve at the end that it feels nice as a closer. It's not something I'm going to really listen to, but I think it's in place.
Yeah. Man, if I were to keep talking about this album, I'd just start getting repetitive. Blah, blah, blah. I love the strings. Blah, blah, blah. I love the synths, the choruses, the hooks, the riffs, the breakdowns. Oh, Move is such an underutilized breakdown call out. Like,
oh yeah, dude.
You hear it live, but when you hear it on the album, my word, I think that's in Give Me Half. Golly, that breakdown is so massive.
Such a good song too, because it has that piano.
It is. And it's got the strings. Yeah, it's all just so good. If you like metalcore and somehow you haven't heard this album, once you're done with this episode, go listen to it because it's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't ever listen to that album before.
I listened to it when I was getting into metalcore because like Prada was like kind of a big name in metalcore, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll check it out. And I got into them probably around the time of the Space EP. That was like the first release I remember hearing when they dropped it. So maybe there's a little bit of bias there, fellas. But I still think that EP is great. And I remember I checked this out, and it didn't click with me in my young metalcore ears. But going back to it, it is phenomenal.
It is great.
It is.
You know, are we done, gents?
I think so.
Are we ready to keep trucking along to the very distance?
I am.
My number 2, Devil Wears Prada project is Zombie EP.
Oh my God, they're everywhere.
Wow.
Kind of disrespectful, I say, as I also put that at number 2.
What do you mean?
No, I was saying that's kind of disrespectful to put it at 2, but then I realized that I also put it at 2. So Kyle, welcome to the same page, buddy.
I'm kind of befuddled that we all have a different number 1.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think the odds were good with as many projects as they have, and they have a handful that are truly amazing. So I was like, you know, I think the odds are pretty high. And we were due. We had a very long streak of all agreeing.
We were due.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
can start on this
Heck
one.
yeah.
Since I have it as my favorite.
You want to
Whoa,
start on
whoa,
this one?
Jeff.
You want to start on
Jeff,
this
you want to
one?
just you want to decide that? Kyle's the host.
I figured since I have it at number one, I might as well.
You figure correctly.
Oh,
Go ahead.
thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it, Nathan. To me, this is the closest thing that they have to a perfect project. And I don't think it's a stretch to say it's a perfect project. I mean, it is an EP with only 5 songs. But even with that, I mean, perfectly crafting each and every song as well as they did, I think credit due to them where it's due, because they did a really phenomenal job with this. The first thing I want to say is that this song really does build a really cool story to listen to throughout the entire thing. I remember, I said that the Space EP has some problems with the beginning and ending, and no doubt this EP does as well. I just think it does it better, and I think that the songs earn, so for example, Outnumbered begins with that really long kind of radio transmission, and I don't mind listening to it as much because I know that it's building up to something absolutely nuts. And so it kind of gets me invested into it almost.
I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. Like the fake zombie news thing.
Yeah.
I dug that. I dug
They
that.
do it so well.
Into the filthy riff.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. And the reason why I think it works is because this EP induces such anxiety out of me that I almost feel like, I'm invested into it. I don't know what it is, but I think it's the culmination of just the insanely fast tempo on every single song in this EP, on top of like the sirens, the zombie sounds, everything that's going on in the background that makes me feel like, gets my heart rate going up, gets my breathing going up. Like I really feel invested into this. It's almost watching like a really good movie or playing a zombie video game where you really feel like you're being chased. That's how this feels to me, especially like the first 4 songs, where this really comes into full force. And I just love that. I don't think I've ever listened to another EP where I feel such energy and such like anxiety inducing moments, that just makes me feel like I'm really in the moment with all these zombies. And then, just of course you get all the breakdowns and the craziness. So what you get at the end is just this really awesome, cohesive story where the music doesn't just feel supplementary, but it feels like an integral part of what they're trying to show you, of what they're trying to get across. Like each breakdown really, I kind of feel like it serves a purpose, right? It's like almost like a fight scene in a zombie movie or something when they happen and they just slam in there. I just feel like it really all comes together into this really, really nice, well-crafted, sort of well-packaged gift that I want to listen to. Now, Survivor, I don't think is the strongest. I think it's probably the worst song, worst. I think it's the weakest song on this EP. But as an ending, I think it does a really, really good job of what it's trying to do.
I agree. I would agree with
Yeah,
that.
I agree. I think I do agree that it's probably the weakest part, but like you're saying, the story it's telling is, and I mentioned this earlier, but like his wife is taken by the zombies and nothing's changing for him except for retreat. Like that, I don't know. It's so hard. And I really like how you said that the music just has you on edge.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know something is not right with the story. Like that the main character, whatever they're going through, is extremely unpleasant. And to convey that through music and not only storytelling, because you can't hear them through the screams. Like these are filthy guttural screams. But just to understand that through the little context that we're given is unbelievable. How they pulled that off. And I think Revive is my favorite song.
Dude, that song is nuts.
Just the fall off in the last minute where they're just saying we cannot restore, we cannot recover, with like the kind of piano and orchestra synth.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Bro, the best part of that song is it's got to be in the second verse. There's this like wild atmosphere they put together with like screaming crowds and strings, and you have this female vocal that comes in.
Yes,
and
yes,
the
creepy choir.
And it's like the craziest thing I have ever heard, all over this insane breakdown. I like that song is unreal. That is easy top 3 Prada song.
Oh,
easy.
I'm gonna throw all these into my top 10, probably each and every one of these songs.
Yeah, I mean, like this EP is on another level. I can think of maybe one other EP that is truly on the same level as this one, and it's not one we've talked about.
What is it?
What is? I'm curious.
A Tear in the Fabric of Life by Knocked Loose is one of
Fair.
the most
That's fair.
intense and visceral EPs I've ever heard. And it kind of does that same thing where it invokes this real anxiety just with the story they're telling.
That's a good one, actually.
I would put that EP and this EP in the same tier of absolutely elite EPs, and they might be the only ones in there. They're in a league of their own. But I think one thing this EP does really well that we've kind of touched on a little bit, but not fully, I think there's obviously the storytelling through the music, and you get all those sound effects and the atmosphere and everything, the rain, the chainsaws, the shotguns, all of that. But I think it even goes a step further, and just the way that the songs are structured really kind of invoke that feeling of the world is falling apart and our options are limited. In the very first song, when the outbreak is happening in Escape, that song is just the constant barrage of ever-changing riffs. And it feels like it never really goes back to a part that played earlier. And I feel like that really does a good job of evoking this confusion and what's happening, what's going on. This is also chaotic and intense, and it just works so well. And I feel like that integrates into the anxiety that Jeff is talking about. And I feel like it kind of emulates what it would feel like to be caught in the middle of a zombie outbreak. Going that far, going to that depth in songwriting is just so special. And they pull this EP off so well. It's unbelievable. It literally, this EP sounds like Prada sat down and were like, what if we took our sound but did everything at the logical extreme and just took it to 110 and just pushed ourselves to make the craziest, the fastest, the heaviest, maybe even the catchiest. There's some really catchy songs on here, like Revive that Kyle was talking about. Yeah, this EP just takes their sound to an extreme that I don't think they ever touch again. And it is so well done.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
This is a masterpiece.
Oh, 100%. And there definitely is a difference in sound with this EP versus with Roots Above. And it's kind of hard to explain how, aside from obviously all the zombie sound effects and stuff, just the music itself, it just feels different.
Well, I mean, it's similar to Zombie 2 and Color Decay and The Act. Zombie 2 is sandwiched in between those and sounds nothing like them.
Yeah. Which makes sense because it's kind of a callback to this. I think what really plays a big part of that is it's faster. You're getting constant double kick. The riffs are blazing through, and it's heavier. The breakdowns hit so hard. I think the biggest change is the atmosphere because you have the stringed elements, you have the orchestra and the synth and everything in Roots, but it's not crushing. It's not ominous. It's not devastating. It's kind of almost a little playful at times, Big Wiggly style. It's fun. Those songs are fun, but this is intense. I wouldn't describe the atmosphere on this EP as fun.
No, not at all.
But I could easily describe Roots as pretty fun.
Yeah. It's definitely an oppressive atmosphere here with the instrumentation. It's suffocating almost.
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe it is with just how fast everything's going. It's just hard to keep up. You feel out of breath just listening to it.
And then they hit you with the cocking of a shotgun and hit you with this really sludgy breakdown. And it's
Or the sound of a chainsaw with a violating riff after that. It is fascinating that they were able to capture this in 5 songs.
Oh no, it's unreal.
I will say on Escape at the 3:35 mark, it sounds like the guitar riff in Detroit Rock City by Kiss. Exactly like that riff for about 4 seconds there. It's nuts. I don't know.
That's really funny.
The first time I heard that, it brought me back to when I was in 3rd grade listening to Kiss on my little iPod Nano. Anyways, now this EP is better than anything Kiss has ever done. I say that with confidence.
I'll back that up with another argument. The Devil Wears Prada could play Kiss songs. Kiss could not play anything on this EP.
That is true.
No band that came out before 1985 can play anything off of this EP.
Facts.
Dude, the geezers would have a heart attack. Think about it, Nathan. If I showed my grandmother this EP, do you think that she would walk out of the studio alive?
No.
I love the idea because the opening track, you get the strings and the rain. It's like, oh, Kyle, this is really nice. What is this? And you get the drum that's like, da, 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 da. And then it just goes into this crazy lightning fast double bass kick.
And the guy screaming, "There's no time. There's no time." Just like,
I genuinely think 30 seconds into that song, my grandmother would succumb.
Yeah. No.
And you can put any of them. I have 3. You can put any of them on that lineup. I would be willing to bet they would all just drop dead within a minute. Anyways,
yeah.
we could play with this album or this EP forever. I'm done and ready to talk about my favorite Devil Wears Prada album, if you guys would allow me.
Okay.
all right, guys, that was a great show. See you guys next week or next month.
Kyle, can you run through your rankings real quick?
My number 1 Devil Wears Prada album is Dead Throne. Then there's the applause. Then there's the second round of applause. Jeff, you have it at number 3. Nathan, you have it at number 4. Can we agree that this album does rule, at least?
Yeah.
100%.
All right.
Here's my thing. Z2 through Roots all rule. So
Okay.
I'm not going to argue that this doesn't rule.
I think that this is their most mature record, or one of their most mature records. It's so layered and so brutal, but it has these elements that come before it. Kind of we were talking about with Dear Love even. It brings all the elements in and I think makes them better than even them with Roots did them. And you can kind of feel the lead ups throughout this album. And there's always a massive climax. And that's what I love about it. I think Dead Throne starts off huge, especially the part where they just start saying Dead Throne over or screaming Dead Throne over and over is awesome. I don't know if this is a typo. What does this word mean? Untidaled?
I think it's untitled.
I'm an idiot. I enjoy the pace of that one. Mammoth lives up to the song name because that song is enormous with very emotional. The gallops are awesome. And Vengeance is a top 5 song for me pretty easily. The scream in the chorus is horrifying, but it's so massive. And then they add in different elements in the second chorus that kind of tweak it, make it a little more interesting. And then it gets into the breakdown, which broke my neck driving to the airport. RIT, I enjoyed. My Questions is good. I think the chorus is fine, but it's really picked up by the atmosphere that's created in this. And there's a bleh breakdown. There's a devastating breakdown.
Yes, there is.
Where he says bleh.
We love a blood breakdown. Put it on the counter. There's one.
There's one. They have one. It's a 1 spike. What are y'all's thoughts on Kansas?
I think it's a decent interlude, but I'm never going to go back to it.
Exactly my thoughts.
Dude, I really like it. And is it an interlude? Because it's like 4 minutes. I feel like it's a song.
Who says interludes can't be 4 minutes? Where was the time constraint on interludes?
I think it's a song. Just because there's no singing doesn't mean it's not a song.
Yeah, but it's so different than anything else on the album.
I think we're getting into semantics with this one because it doesn't necessarily have to be an interlude, but it could be an instrumental track. But do instrumental tracks act as interludes?
Maybe.
Ultimately, I mean, it's a track on the album that exists and serves a purpose.
And it's a track on the album that serves a purpose, and I would think that it would split the album up from kind of the good stuff to the not so good stuff, or because it does usually happen often where an interlude is kind of that dividing line where maybe there's one good song in the back half. Born to Lose is awesome.
Okay, I was about to
say verse in
say
that song.
I was about to say you said it kind of splits up the front half with the good stuff and the back half with the bad stuff, and I was like, are you about to say Born to Lose isn't a banger?
No, and I would be remiss to say Forever Decay is a better song than Born to Lose.
I would agree.
It is That song might be the best. I mean, that song might challenge Vengeance for the best on the album.
No, Vengeance
Mhm.
is still the best.
Dead Throne actually clears both of them. Sorry.
Dead Throne?
Wow, look at us, guys.
Yeah,
That's a
dude,
weird take. I actually disagree completely.
I don't know. That song clicks for me on levels that like other things on this album don't quite touch. Except,
Yeah.
you want an even weirder take? I want to give a special shout out to Constance as a potential best song on this album for some reason.
I love that song.
That is a nuts thing to say, but it is a great song.
It's awesome.
It's just not better than Forever Decay.
Forever Decay is
Vengeance.
awesome. I could find a compelling argument for Forever Decay being the best, but Constance is kind of cool though. It has a really unique strings element to it.
Yeah. I think Chicago is a take it or leave it song. I think it's
Well, it kind of does
Sort
that
of
half
boring.
screamed, half spoken word thing over mellow instrumentals that I hate.
yeah, I just don't think it never gets to a point where I want to listen to it. It's kind of the Devil Wears Prada problem with some songs where they seem to build to nothing. It's a road to nowhere.
Yeah, that song single-handedly dropped this album below Roots.
wow.
Unfortunately,
You know what? I actually agree with that a lot
It just
because Roots doesn't have a song like that
No.
with that delivery, but this does.
Yeah, I think the best songs on this song are much better than the best songs on With Roots, and that's why it's above. But I do agree that Chicago does kind of suck. The city and the song.
Oh, hey
Um,
now.
Whoa.
I like Pretenders, and I think Hold Fast is a little samey and not a great closer.
Mm.
But as I mentioned, I think Dead Throne, Mammoth, Vengeance, Born to Lose, and Forever Decay are all potential top 10 songs that make this just such an enjoyable listen. And the elements in this album, I think, there are so many of them, but it captures it better than any album before it has, even though some have tried.
See, I think the opening 5 tracks from Dead Throne through RIT are all Prada performing at a very high level, doing their metalcore sound to a T. Bravo. Untitled has an insane go breakdown that like kind of bursts into these really fast triplets
Mhm.
that is just delightful. And then Mammoth has that breakdown at the end. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, those songs are amazing. And then Born to Lose, Forever Decay is a great 1-2 punch. And then shout out Constance is awesome. But I think I don't want to be a negative Nancy because this song or this album is phenomenal. It's really good. But I think for me, it does kind of lack a lot of the orchestral elements and piano. Like it doesn't have necessarily the same color that I think Roots does, and I think that color is kind of what puts it above Dead Throne for me.
Fair. I mean, kind of what we mentioned earlier, at least in my opinion, the
Mhm.
variance between the top 4 albums or top 4 projects is pretty marginal.
Yeah, I would agree
Yeah.
with that.
I actually, I was debating like, even today, like Dead Throne versus Roots because of what you were saying, Kyle. I just think that there are the highs on this album that are just so insanely high that it almost justifies putting it at number 2. Nathan, what you were
Yeah.
saying, the first 5 songs, I even like My Questions. I don't know if you guys are too high on that. I do like that song.
I enjoyed My Questions.
I enjoy it, but it kind of just washes over me. Like it's almost in one ear out the other because I think it's kind of just not the best version of that song on this album.
I do think that there are better songs, but I think it's okay. I think it's okay. Hold Fast, Kyle, completely agree. I think it just kind of happens. I wish there was more to it. I didn't like that it didn't feel as heavy as the other songs on this album, and I wish that wasn't the case because they had the chance to close this album excellently with something else. But
Right.
so that was kind of a letdown. And then Chicago, of course, I just think is a mess. Frankly, just a mess of a song.
I mean, I agree.
Dude, it is.
I
The
agree.
crime in Chicago is rife right now.
Well, I'm not going to talk about the
Yeah,
city.
Chicago.
Not to
Stupid
I'll talk
joke.
about the city.
I'm sorry.
I'll talk about the city. It's bad. Why do you need 2 baseball teams? Neither of them are that good.
Chicago's a mess. But other than that, I mean, this is a great album. I think the highs are insanely high. But, to Nathan's point, I do think that it lacks some of those more unique elements in each song that help them stand out. And so that's why I put it at number 3, not number 2. But it's still a great album.
Yeah, I think it's almost, kind of another shift in atmosphere. It's not as oppressive as Zombie, but it's very gloomy. This is a very gloomy album.
Definitely think it's the closest to a full-length Zombie album that they have.
I would agree because I think Roots is man. I've got weird descriptors in my pocket tonight, but Roots is almost a little more playful for some reason.
No, I agree.
It's like a fun brand of metalcore, and then this is like a very gloomy version, almost of that sound.
Yes.
I mean, it's called Dead Throne.
Yeah.
And have you seen the album cover? It's basically just an
awesome.
upside down skull.
It's awesome.
It's epic.
It's pretty cool.
So that brings an interesting discussion. What's the best Prada album cover?
For sure, Dead Throne.
I really like Color Decay.
I don't know. I really like Roots.
I mean, Jeff, I will say Roots and Dead Throne washes Color Decay.
Yeah, I agree.
What?
Dude,
yeah,
it's
dude.
not even close.
Color Decay, it's simple. It's simple, but I think it evokes such strong like emotion.
I think it matches the sound of the album well, but I think Roots is better.
The act is better.
Dead
maybe.
Throne is better. The Act is better. It has an awesome album
Okay,
cover.
the X is pretty cool, yeah.
Plagues.
Dude, Plagues
is
is
awesome. They were really in their album cover bag for a while there.
Jeez, man. They truly were. And then they dropped Transit Blues album cover, which
Yeah.
sucks.
818s is terrible.
818's album cover, which is
Yeah.
I mean, dude, Transit Blues is by far their worst.
Oh yeah.
It's abstract. You just don't get it.
It stinks. Although I did notice just today that Color Decay, the little person's eyes are the Devil Wears Prada logo.
Yes,
Didn't realize
sir.
that.
Yes, they are. That's a pretty
Dang.
good logo, I think.
Yeah, it's weird, and they did it horribly with Transit Blues, but yeah, I think it's pretty epic.
Abstract. It's abstract.
It's kind of
Kyle.
like, dude, it's kind of like Hail the Sun. Like Hail the Sun has a nice little logo.
They do. I love a band that can, get a little bit of good branding in there. It's so important to have like a recognizable thing that you can implement on all of your albums.
Nathan usually charges hundreds of bucks for that
Yeah.
information. You guys just
All you
got
have to do is sit
free.
through this
Guys.
episode to the end, and you get that information.
Wait until 2 hours in where Nathan drops some serious marketing knowledge.
Having a brand is good.
Make the logo cool.
Make the logo recognizable. What is their logo? I don't know what it is, but it's good.
like a triangle thing.
Triangle and lines. It doesn't really mean anything. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything, according to this interview.
Oh, here's an interesting little tidbit from the interview. We wanted something you could draw easily. Sketch it out if you're bored. Something easy. And if you're looking at it, you can be like, oh, that's the Devil Wears Prada. So we don't have to write this huge, long name anymore. Just tag the symbol, and people know exactly what it is.
That's smart.
That's very smart. That's good marketing. Good job, boys. Proud of you.
All right, cool. We ready to blow
let's
this
close this out.
popsicle stand?
Yeah, why don't you run through your rankings real quick, buddy?
My number 11 album is Dear Love, A Beautiful Discord. My number 10 is Plagues. Number 9, Space EP. Number 8, 818.
Ooh.
Number 7, Transit Blues. Number 6, Color Decay. Number 5, The Act. Number 4, Z2 or V1. Number 3, With Roots Above and Branches Below. Number 2, Zombie 1 EP. And number 1, Dead Throne.
Yes, sir. Okay, so that'll wrap up this episode. If you're still here, thank you very much for listening all the way through our tomfoolery and heated arguments and ridiculous takes. If you're still here, leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. And there will not be an episode in June. Our summers are all super busy and we won't be able to push one out for you. But we will be back with an absolute heater in July. That'll be just as long as this one. So that's something to look forward to. So yeah, thank y'all so much for listening, and we'll see y'all in July.